Good evening, folks. It's Diamond with the Oppenheimer Ranch Project, Magnetic Reversal News, Shinrin Yoku, and Yurt Life, bringing you a grand solar minimum update Thursday, January 4th, 8:30 p.m. Mountain Time 2024. Understanding the polar vortex is key to understanding the climate change scam as major snow is headed for the U.S. Keep calm. It's boom time. Nor'easter to dump the first significant snow in 2 years across the east. A major winter storm packing travel, snarling snow, and dangerous ice is on track to arrive in the Northeast this weekend. Like a beast. Most snow is forecast to fall in northeastern PA through the Catskills, up through Massachusetts, Connecticut, and southern Vermont and New Hampshire, with AccuWeather local storm max predicting 20 inches maximum. Should be a wide swath of 8 to 12 inches for most of the region as Massachusetts weather snow total predictions increase as the weekend storm approaches, and approach it does. The Alaska storm is persisting, and there is snow for the Southwest and plains. I know, because it snowed outside all night and all day. Close monitoring of the East Coast winter storm as well, as the models have come into consensus and the numbers are now no longer shifting. A series of storms will continue to impact Alaska through the weekend, and a storm tracking across the Southwest providing rain and snow will spread into the central southern plains with accumulating snow expected. This system will track along the Gulf Coast Friday, then into the mid-Atlantic region this weekend. Heavy rain across the south and the southeast, snow for portions of the mid-Atlantic and the northeast. Let's take a look at the models. Here is the current state of the GFS model, where you can see that wintry system has moved east from our region, will continue to move east, to bomb out over Oklahoma and Texas, the nexus of the Schmexus. As that low is going to be sitting over the Gulf of Mexico, there'll be moisture funneling into the system, and that means severe weather will explode on Friday and move its way across the southeast like a beast, affecting most of the southern portions of Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia through early in the weekend. Here is your Saturday forecast. Rapidly, that storm's going to move off coast and blast up the northeast like a beast, like a nor'easter, and it's going to bring heavy snow on the back end of that system, as well as a mix in New York and Philadelphia. Should be interesting how this develops. Let's take a look at what the current situation is here on the key message. For January 6th and 7th on the East Coast winter storm. Icing likely in the Appalachians, with heavy snow expected for the interior mid-Atlantic and Northeast. Heavy snow likely in the Northeast for the interior mid-Atlantic and New England. There is increasing confidence for heavy snow from Saturday afternoon into Sunday. That will be your fun day. The greatest uncertainty in the rain and snow transition is from southeastern Pennsylvania and northern New Jersey, which it typically is. Always, even back when I was a little kid, the question was, is it going to be rain or is it going to be snow? I grew up in southeast PA, in the suburbs of Philadelphia, and I'm well aware of the fickleness of the nor'easter. People in those areas should still be prepared for the possibility of snow and changes in the forecast, as we're well aware of. At one point, they could say 1 inch, and right before the storm hits, they're going to be like, nah, you're getting 6 to 10, baby. So the biggest probability is in the area of red, and that region will definitely be getting heavy snow. Wet snow and wind in southern New England. The combination of heavy and wet snow and gusty winds in Connecticut, Rhode Island, and Massachusetts may lead to power outages and tree damages. There will be minor coastal flooding possible in the Northeast as well, because gusty onshore winds could lead to minor flooding along the mid-Atlantic and southern New England coasts, particularly for the Sunday morning high tide cycle. So be warned. Ice impacts to travel in the southern Appalachians as well. As you can see here, the chances of 0.1 inch of freezing precipitation extending all the way down into southern Virginia. So in the Appalachian region of western North Carolina, western Virginia, and eastern West Virginia, accumulations of ice in excess of 0.1 inches due to freezing rain are likely, with locally higher accumulations possible, which could lead to devastating travel. This icing, along with some areas of sleet, may produce hazardous travel conditions Friday night into Saturday. And that brings us over to the GFS model to take a look at the total snow forecast that they have coming in the 18Z run here. So here's Friday into Saturday morning. The system will move through the central U.S., while that severe weather will move across the southeast, bringing snow to Kansas. Good news there, a little bit of snow to northern Oklahoma as well. As it moves east, it's going to bring a small amount of snow to the central states, including northern Indiana and Michigan, as well as Illinois, Ohio. And then that's going to bomb up the East Coast here. So by Monday morning, it looks like the big winter chicken dinner here is near Boston. And in the suburbs of Boston, could be picking up 16 inches of snow or more. Now, the entire West Coast is going to get a slathering along the Cascadia spine down into the Sierras here. So good news for skiers, as the global basins in the West were at a deficit. But this system, once it moves through, is going to make that situation much better. Another system will move east to add insult to injury to all those places. By January 11th, another system will have covered all the snow in New England and in the Appalachians and the East Coast with more snow. The system's looking fantastic as more snow and more snow. 5 systems through January 20th are in the forecast. Shut up, Al! He knows what I'm looking at, and he's not very happy. No bun cake! Well, maybe just a sliver if you shovel in the morning. Extreme cold grips Nordic countries as floods hit Western Europe. Temperatures have fallen below minus 40 degrees C in Lapland, in the Nordic region, for a second day in a row, the coldest ever recorded in history. Yeah, the coldest January temperatures recorded in Swedish Lapland for decades as well. People fighting their way through the snowstorm in Kristianland, Norway on Wednesday, January 3rd. As you can see, the global warming goodness is falling in epic proportions right next door to Greta Thunberg's boyhood home. How do you like them apples? Over to the seismic update. Changes in the coastline associated with the M7.6 earthquake that just occurred January 1st, 2024 in Japan. Now, this is a translated article, but what they have found is massive amounts of new land in Japan. This is due to uplift of up to 4 meters. Regarding the 2022 earthquake that occurred 1610 on January 1st, 2024, we used observational data from Daiichi 2 to find out before and after the earthquake were compared. As a result, it was found that some areas along the coast where uplift due to the earthquake were detected were terrestrialized, meaning new land was formed. And this is around Minazuki Bay in Wajima City, where an uplift of 4 meters, that's 12 feet, was detected. And here we can see some of that land rising up and showing up where land did not exist before. Now, other regions drop down here clearly, or no, there's more land showing up where land, and then again, more land showing up. So uplift along the entire eastern coast of Japan is going to extend beaches out and make it quite fantastic. So there are good things that happen from terrible earthquakes. How do you like them apples? Who knew? Now you do. Seismic update for the rest of the world. Not much action. Looks like a little Yellowstone activity here. 5.2 in Stanley, Idaho. Here we have a 2.5 in Cedar Point, Kansas. Could be frac related. Continuing uptick in Hawaii, probably related to Kilauea and more magma being in place there. But I do digress. As we move to the Reykjanes volcano update, uplift declines, but the risk of an eruption remains high. In fact, the latest GPS measurements indicate that the level of ground uplift in the Svartsengi region started to decrease yesterday. The information was published by experts from the Iceland Met Office yesterday morning. The decline in inflation might be a telltale sign of an impending eruption, hinting that the accumulation of magma or the exsolution of gas inside of the dike. An identical situation appeared late in the evening of 15th of December, which considered a precursor to the recent eruption on the 18th. So will we see an eruption in the next day or so? Well, we're keeping a close eye on it. But there certainly has been an uptick in seismicity in Reykjanes. Here we can see a spike about 48 hours ago. This was in the area of Kreisuvik volcano, not currently in Grindavik, where the current The most recent eruption happened, but over further west from where other eruptions have happened in the last 3 years. Kreisvik is now becoming active, and since that major seismic event, there has been an uptick in tremor. Now, this has been related to tectonic activity and not volcanic activity, but I don't believe a word that anyone says. The Kreisvik volcano system, well, we'll leave you links to it all below. It really hasn't erupted since the 12th century, 1188, but it is certainly getting jiggy. Worldwide volcano news update. No other quakes of note. Normal activity worldwide. Marapi with an A to 16,000 feet. Popo to 20,000. Ibu to 8,000. Nevado de Ruiz to 20,000 feet. Manam coming into the picture today with a 9,000 foot puff. Fuego to 16,000. Reventador, 14,500 foot puff today. And that is your volcano update for January 4th. Space weather news. We have a new coronal hole that will be facing Earth now. Coronal hole 89 could trigger some low-level seismic activity in the next day or so as we take a look at the latest HMI intensity and that pesky active region that has brought us the largest X flare of the cycle. We're having a little issue here. Hold on. And that would be active region AR3536, which has been diminishing over the last 24 hours, and that has resulted in almost no activity coming since the first major flare and then subsequent M flares. Very quiet in the last 24 hours. Geomagnetic forecast is quiet for the next 72 hours. But the X flare did finally pass Earth. Wow. Since our last update, there were 2 coronal mass ejection fronts, boom and boom, that occurred yesterday. They didn't push the KP anywhere above 3. That was it. And dropping back down. But we are in a low-level, low-energy proton stream currently. The protons continue to gradually rise, and we finally reached the minor S1 threshold yesterday, a direct result of the X5 solar flare, and now almost 72 hours ago. Needless to say, had AR3536 been directly facing Earth, we would have seen a party. And that proton storm continues tonight with a secondary spike just occurring moments ago, but a drop-off has taken us back down through the proton storm threshold. So that last peak could simply be a final hoorah. New images reveal what Uranus really looks like, when we knew all along now, didn't we? No, but on a more serious note, new images coming out reveal what Neptune and Uranus really look like. And what am I talking about? Well, let's take a look. The early Voyager 2 images showed Neptune being this marble blue planet, which led many people to believe that it's some kind of a giant ocean or something. Nothing could be further from the truth. Uranus and Neptune are both failed stars, brown dwarfs, or gas giants, whatever you want to call them. But at any moment, they could be shot out into the universe, powered by a Birkeland current, and reignite as potentially, a white dwarf or yellow dwarf or yellow giant or any type of star, depending on how much energy is coming through these nuclei. Gas giants are failed nuclei of stars, which are incorporated in solar systems and called gas giants. They have cores, potentially solid cores, which can eject and become terrestrial planets, or the atmospheres themselves can be stripped away and the terrestrial core can be left, which would be called a rocky planet, like Mars, Venus, Mercury, and Earth. And that is the state of the world. But you can see the reprocessed images in the study showing that Uranus is not much different than Neptune. How do you like them apples? I always thought my anus was more like Neptune anyway. The world's first tunnel to a magma chamber could unleash unlimited energy or begin the crack in the world. And those that watched the 1954 movie know what I'm talking about. It is a scary situation. In Iceland, scientists are planning to drill 2 boreholes to a reservoir of liquid rock, just like in the movie in 1954, Crack in the World. One will give us our first direct measurements of magma, and the other could crack the earth in half and create a blockbuster of a podcast. Or actually supercharge geothermal power, perhaps. What are your thoughts on drilling into a magma chamber directly? Do you think the 1954 film Crack in the World is actually subliminal messaging to the future? Now let's talk about the polar vortex. Back in the late 70s, they used the polar vortex to fearmonger the public and claiming that we were headed back into an ice age. They said that all the signs of an ice age were happening because the polar vortex was breaking down and dumping into lower latitudes like it's doing today due to the meridional flow. When we have a stable polar vortex, we have a stable jet stream and a very fast jet, which keeps all the cold air up in the Arctic regions. But if the jet stream breaks down and a more meridional flow occurs, we get a wavy jet pattern, which brings Arctic cold air all the way down to the mid-latitudes and pushes warm air all the way up in the Arctic Circle, a scenario we've been experiencing for the last 2 decades. Now, the question should be, and here's where it gets crazy. Now, climate alarmists and global warmists are blaming the wavy jet pattern and the breakdown of the polar vortex on global warming, where 5 decades ago, they were blaming it on global cooling. So clearly, it's not global warming or global cooling that causes the breakdown of the jet. Yes, and the jet is controlled by the electrical patterns on Earth, like all weather. They're the same as sunspots. We have Earth spots, high and low pressures, and they move across the Earth due to electrical patterns, positive and negative charges. That's why we have lightning and storm fronts and other phenomena. But the reality is that with modern science, we know now that the breakdown of the jet stream is due to low solar activity. When the sun is weak, we have less solar storms and our magnetosphere is weak, which allows the jet stream to break down and become sloppy or meridional. And so we can prove this by simply looking at the solar science. Back in the 70s, the sun had been strengthening for 100 years towards 1960. And then there was a very weak cycle starting in 1964 all the way through almost 1980. We had low solar activity, and this allowed for the breakdown of the jet stream, the meridional flow, the ice age scare, and all the gobbledygook we got. But the reason we had meridional flow and the polar vortex breaking down is because of a weak cycle, which barely went above 110 sunspots. Are you picking it up? That's the same as solar cycle 24 and 25 that we've been living for the last 15, 17 years. And so, I do digress. The polar vortex and disrupted polar vortex has nothing to do with global warming or global cooling, has everything to do with the sun. Just like climate on Earth, and when its sun sets, it gets cold, etc. Yeah, we got a long way to go with climate science. And the experts apparently are baffled. But the alarmists can use this opportunity to lie to you one more time. And we just stuck a foot up the butt of the alarmists with facts. More facts coming now. Archaeologists discover a hidden Maya burial chamber in the walled enclosure of Tulum. Now, I set foot at Tulum 2 decades ago, and it was a fantastic sight. The fact that I was walking on these burials is even more fantastic. Archaeologists from the National Institute of Anthropology and History have discovered a hidden Maya burial chamber concealed within a cave at the archaeological complex in Tulum, in Quintana Roo. And that is in the Yucatan Peninsula. The discovery, sealed off by massive rock deep inside Mexico's walled city of Tulum, offers a rare glimpse into the funerary practices of this pre-Hispanic, pre-Columbian civilization. Let's take a look at a very compelling video that I'm sure you'll enjoy.
Iniciamos excavaciones en esta zona debido a que se va a habilitar un sendero para la visita pública. Cuando empezamos a excavar aquí, localizamos sistemas constructivos tardíos de esta plaza. Decidimos sondear, ¿no?, un poco más para verificar pues la presencia de materiales, recuperar algunos datos, ¿no?, de los materiales, la temporalidad. Empezamos a explorar un poco más y encontramos el primer entierro, que es un entierro de un infante, de un recién nacido al parecer, muy deteriorado directamente sobre la roca madre. Entonces empezamos a ampliar la excavación, abrimos unos cuantos cuadros más y siguieron apareciendo entierros. Entonces pues ya nos está hablando de que era un lugar pues destinado para la deposición de los muertos, ¿no? Lo principal es que estamos ante un contexto único, al menos en la zona arqueológica de Tulum no se había registrado algo así. Este lugar pues es un elemento natural, ¿no? Y desde el momento en que es una cueva pues te remite a la entrada del inframundo, ¿no? Es un lugar que se utiliza.
What a fantastic discovery. Please go check out the links below. All the links to everything we discuss will be below the video, including links to our Rumble channel, Oppenheimer Ranch Project, on Rumble, propaganda-free science, news, and insight. We have published 5 videos in the last 9 days, all of which may tickle your fancy. Dulce underground military base, Tucker Carlson's reaction after visiting Julia Assange in HM prison in Belmarsh, 2 videos from a guest we will have on the show in just a few weeks, Ben Joseph Stewart. This is some of his early documentary work, including Esoteric Agenda from 2007 and Kymanica from 2008, both up on the channel, as well as a video I put up today on Epstein's pedophile island and the new lists coming out. Governments are mostly blackmailed pedophiles. Did you know? Well, you would be informed if you followed us over at Oppenheimer Ranch Project at Diamond the Dave on X. Go over there, open an account, and follow us now, and follow all the breaking news all day. And that's a boom to knowledge. Proper prior planning prevents piss poor performance. Those are the 7 Ps. We love each and every one of you. Be safe. Become a Patreon. Support the work we do. We love you. And that is a boom.